In a house, there's a party full of young people, and one of them is Liz. One of Liz's friends feels annoyed with her because she likes to post photos of vegetarian food, while her friend is an omnivore. But he admits that he can control his food intake so that he doesn't get fat, thanks to a food intake app he uses called Countdown to Skinny. This makes another friend interested, so he browses the app, but instead he finds another app called Countdown, and this makes the friends curious. Therefore, the friend reads the description of the app that says, "If you can find out the time of your death, would you want to know it?" And the friends think that it is a cool app. So, they decide to play around with the app. Whoever's life ends first must finish all the strong drinks on their table. At first, Liz feels hesitant to join in, but after being told that the app is just an ordinary app, she finally downloads it without reading the long terms and conditions inside. Once everyone has downloaded it, the friends show their results. Some get 63 years, 32 years, or even 22 years. But not Liz. She gets only 3 hours left to live. In the end, she has to drink all the drinks. This is noticed by her boyfriend, Evan, so he decides to help Liz finish the challenge. After the party ends, he and Liz go back in a car. But Liz reminds Evan not to drive while drunk. Therefore, she asks them to just go home on foot. However, Evan thinks that Liz already feels scared of the Countdown app, especially since her time is only 9 minutes left. As a result, they argue, and finally, Evan leaves Liz alone. Not long after, there's a notification from Countdown that Liz has violated the user agreement. Liz doesn't know what action makes her considered to have violated, but she doesn't care too much and continues her way. Finally, she is followed by a man in black from behind, before she realizes it. She feels relieved when she sees the man get into his car. But then she becomes scared again when she sees a pile of trash shaped like a person and another shadowy figure in a house across the street. Her fear increases when she sees that her countdown has less than 2 minutes left. So she quickly enters her house and turns off her phone to avoid receiving Countdown's notifications again. Liz then calms herself by going to the bathroom. But there, she hears something strange from behind the shower curtain and finds nothing when she opens it. When she returns to the sink, the strange noises are heard again, and this time the curtain is already closed by itself. Therefore, Liz wants to check again, but just before she can open the curtain, she is startled by a Countdown notification sound that magically turns on. Liz wants to stop it, but suddenly she is pulled by something from above that tortures her. In the end, she dies, together with her countdown turning into all zeros. Meanwhile, in a forest, it is revealed that Evan has an accident. But luckily, he doesn't die after narrowly avoiding a tree that pierces his car. Switch to a hospital, where there is an intern nurse named Quinn who works to serve the patients kindly and tries to be appointed as a permanent nurse in the hospital. One day, Quinn sees a patient who refuses to eat the provided food, and she already knows where the patient goes. So Quinn goes to the restricted area of the hospital and sees the patient alone at the end of the hallway. That patient is Evan. Quinn assumes that Evan feels afraid of undergoing the operation that will be performed, but he admits that it is not the operation that scares him. What really scares him is the Countdown app he has downloaded, and his countdown shows only 19 hours left. At first, Quinn doesn't believe in such things, but after she knows that Evan's girlfriend, Liz, had 9 minutes left and really died 9 minutes later, Evan begins to believe that the Countdown app can predict death. Now, Evan has only 19 hours left, and coincidentally, 19 hours later, he will undergo surgery. Therefore, he fears that he will die during the operation. But after Quinn convinces him that it is only the work of some crazy person, Evan feels a little motivated not to be afraid of the Countdown app. Then Quinn is called by her senior nurse, and suddenly, she is surprised by her friends who celebrate her success in becoming a permanent nurse at the hospital. While talking about life, Quinn mentions the Countdown app that can predict death, so some of her friends try to download it and show their results. One of them is a doctor named Sullivan, who has the longest remaining time of 57 years. Not long after, a woman arrives unconscious because of an overdose. Therefore, Dr. Sullivan and the others try to help the woman, especially with an injection of a special fluid to wake her up. Finally, the woman regains consciousness. After that incident, Quinn goes home and, out of curiosity, she downloads Countdown, wondering how long her life will be. Once she registers, she is shocked when she sees the result. Only 2 days left. But her attention is disturbed by the arrival of a doctor, who wants to invite Quinn on a date as a celebration of her permanent nurse status. However, she refuses, saying she wants to finish something. When dealing with that matter in her apartment, She realizes she doesn't have one of the documents required. So she goes to her father's house, and during her search, she finds a note she wrote as a child for her mother, reminding her of her mother, who died in a car accident. Not long after, Quinn hears a strange noise in a closet, so she goes there and finds nothing. But after she moves some clothes aside, behind them is her younger sister Jordan, hiding with her boyfriend. Eventually, he escapes peacefully. As a result, the older and younger sisters argue. In the middle of their fight, their father wakes up because of the noise. Since Quinn is home, her father invites her to visit her mother's grave, which she agrees to before returning to her apartment. The next day at the hospital, Evan goes to the bathroom before undergoing surgery, where he sees his countdown has only 3 minutes left. As a result, Evan feels anxious again, and his fear increases when he sees a notification that he has violated the user agreement. So he wants to return to the operating room, but he's disturbed by a man in black behind him in the mirror. However, the man is not there when Evan looks directly. When he looks at the mirror again, the man is still visible, and finally, he shocks Evan. As a result, Evan becomes terrified. Therefore, he runs to the emergency stairs, where he panics even more when several strange things happen there. He wants to go back inside, but he cannot open the door, and it turns out there is a note that says this door cannot be opened anymore after entering the emergency stair area. Not long after that, Evan hears strange voices again until the voices come closer to him, and Liz appears at the top of the stairs. But that is not Liz, it is a demon that looks like Liz. Then it approaches Evan, and finally, he dies by being thrown down to the ground floor. Sometime later, Quinn realizes Evan's incident, which people assume that he has done something unthinkable, but this reminds Quinn of the countdown that Evan has used. As a result, Quinn feels curious about Evan's countdown, so she checks his phone, but it is locked and needs an eye scan to unlock it. Therefore, Quinn goes to the morgue to take out Evan's body, where Quinn places the phone screen to Evan's closed eyes, but it is not enough to open it. So Quinn is forced to open his eyelids, and finally, she manages to enter Evan's countdown, but what Quinn finds is only the number 00 in the app. As a result, she becomes even more worried about her own countdown, especially since it falls on the schedule of her family's visit to her mother's grave. Therefore, to calm herself, Quinn tells her father that she has hospital work during their visit, which her father understands. Coincidentally, he also has to leave that day to do some extra work, so Quinn and her family plan to visit the grave another time. Not long after that, she receives a user agreement violation notification, along with the demon's presence, which Quinn does not notice. Suddenly, she is startled by the arrival of the doctor, who asks Quinn to help with a patient. But Quinn looks restless while working, so the doctor tries to comfort her. However, his way of comforting Quinn feels strange to her. It becomes worse when the doctor starts touching her inappropriately. Finally, sexual harassment happens, and Quinn pushes the doctor away. Feeling guilty, he apologizes, but Quinn cannot fully forgive him. So Quinn wants to tell this to her senior nurse friend, but she is stopped by the doctor, who calls the senior nurse to come, and finally, Quinn fails to report the harassment. After receiving another violation notification, Quinn tries to delete Countdown, but strangely, she cannot do it. Therefore, she starts to search for Countdown on the internet, and she finds the news about Liz's death, which is claimed as a tragic accident, as well as a comment from someone who gives a video link about his friend who died after using Countdown.
Oh God, oh God, oh God.
But many people respond that the video is fake, which makes Quinn feel a little relieved. She then closes her laptop, and finally, the demon appears in front of her. When the demon disappears from her sight, Quinn receives another notification from Countdown, so she destroys her own phone. But the phone turns back on, with Countdown appearing on the screen again. To avoid being disturbed by the demon, Quinn decides to sleep in her car, since the situation outside is still crowded. But when it starts raining, she wakes up because of thunder. Then she sees the surroundings already empty, and finally, the demon's hand tries to get into the car. But luckily, that is only a nightmare, and Quinn wakes up in the morning when her younger sister Jordan notices her inside the car. Quinn tries not to tell him that it is because of Countdown, but after Jordan finds her phone, she starts to know about it. Quinn asks why Jordan comes here, and she answers that he wants to stay over because their father is away for extra work on the weekend. But Quinn refuses her wish because she does not want Jordan to be harmed by Countdown's effect. This makes older and younger sisters argue again, and finally, Jordan leaves angrily. Since she does not want Countdown to appear on her phone, Quinn goes to a phone shop to buy a new phone and new SIM card. While hearing the seller's offer about a hacking service to download various apps, Quinn sees that Countdown no longer appears on her screen, and finally, she feels relieved. But just before she leaves, she hears Countdown's notification again. It turns out the app has already auto-installed on her phone. So Quinn protests to the seller about Countdown being auto-installed, but he admits he knows nothing about it and cannot delete it either. So Quinn leaves angrily. This makes her lose focus while driving, and she almost hits someone behind her. Her distraction quickly turns into fear when she sees the demon in her rear camera. But the demon is not there when Quinn looks back directly. As a result, Quinn becomes confused, and suddenly she is smothered by the demon from behind, which makes Quinn accidentally step on the gas pedal, and finally, she crashes into another car. As a result, the other driver gets angry, but Quinn is immediately helped by a man named Matt, who is not hesitant to fight the man. Finally, Quinn escapes while feeling terrified. Matt then shows that he is also a Countdown user, with about 18 hours left. So Quinn and Matt become friends and talk about Countdown in a bar, where they complain that they cannot read the terms and conditions anymore. Coincidentally, there's a drunk man next to them, so Matt indirectly persuades the drunk man to download the app, and finally, he does. But just before he accepts the terms and conditions, Quinn and Matt stop him and begin to read the terms themselves. They find two important points. The user must accept his fate, and any attempt to use information from Countdown to change the user's fate will be considered a violation of this agreement. As a result, they think that whatever they do, they will still die in a few hours. But not the drunk man, who gets to live until the age of 91, and finally, he starts to like the Countdown app as a great one for him. To find out what kind of demon always disturbs Quinn and Matt, they go to a priest at the hospital to ask for help. But he admits he is not an expert on demons, so he suggests that Quinn and Matt meet his fellow priest, who may be more competent. After they leave, Quinn's fellow nurse comes and asks her to follow, so Matt goes to the toilet while waiting for Quinn. But his urination is disturbed by a boy, so Matt tells the boy to use another toilet, but strangely, the boy does not reply with anything like an apology. The strangeness increases after Matt finishes, as it turns out the boy can pass through the toilet area into another place, and he does not feel pain when Matt purposely twists his ankle 180 degrees. Finally, the lights go out. As a result, Matt becomes frightened and cannot find the boy, who has disappeared. But Matt does not realize that the boy is actually the demon, who appears behind him while calling his name, and finally, Matt is attacked. But that only lasts for a moment before the situation returns to normal. Meanwhile, Quinn arrives at a room with many important people from the hospital, especially from HRD and Dr. Sullivan himself. At first, Quinn assumes that the doctor wants to confess his sexual harassment, but it turns out that he accuses Quinn instead, saying that she had seduced him all this time just to boost her career, and the doctor claims that he had already told this to the hospital executives. Without the executives knowing, the doctor actually made up this accusation to protect his career because he knew that Quinn would report his sexual harassment, so he chose to slander her before it was too late. As a result, Quinn was shocked, but it was already too late, even though she protested, and finally, she got fired. She and Matt then go to a church, where they meet a cool pastor, and he admits that he strongly believes in demons. Because of that, after Quinn and Matt tell him about the Countdown demon, the pastor tells him a story about a young prince who once asked an old woman for help, and she gave him the Countdown, which at that time was still in the form of a scroll. In the end, the prince violates the user agreement, so he starts to be haunted by another being, the demon named Ozin. As a result, the prince kept being disturbed, then tortured, and finally, he died exactly at the predicted time by the old woman. Therefore, the pastor confirms that this Countdown app is the modern version of what the old woman once did, so he hopes to see the code of the app. This makes Quinn remember someone who claimed to be good at hacking apps, the phone seller. At first, he refused because he already had another plan, but after Quinn and Matt gave him money, he agreed to hack Countdown using his laptop. First, they discover that the Countdown storage detail is very large, up to 60 gigabytes, just to display a countdown. Then he goes deeper, and they find a sentence in Latin, but they do not know its meaning. He digs even deeper, and finally, they find Countdown's user data along with their remaining time. Because he himself also registered out of curiosity, and he wants to watch all MCU superhero movies that will come out in the next 60 years, he added 60 years to his timer, and it really changed in his Countdown app. Feeling happy about this, Quinn asked him to change her own Countdown too. But when searching for Quinn's name and her family surname, he discovered that Jordan had also registered. so Quinn asked him to add Jordan's time as well. After feeling satisfied with the extra time, Quinn and Matt thank each other for the cooperation, but because Quinn really wants to make sure that she can survive the next day without Ozan's disturbance, she asks Matt to stay with her for the night. While they lie down together, they share stories about their loved ones who have already passed away, starting with Matt, who reveals about his younger brother who died from a severe illness, and Quinn, who reveals about her mother who died after being hit by a drunk driver. They then fall asleep soundly, but sometime later, Quinn wakes up when the demon's hand appears near her, and she ends up being disturbed. Not long after it ended, they heard another countdown notification, which turned out to reset their countdown back to the original time. As a result, Quinn worries about Jordan, whose countdown also reset, and her remaining time is only 4 hours. Not long after, he started being disturbed by strange events, so he decided to hide under the bed, but he kept being disturbed when the bed moved by itself, and his mother suddenly appeared beside him. So Jordan quickly ran out of the house and was startled by Quinn's arrival, so they all went to meet the cool pastor again to ask for help. After seeing the Latin sentence inside countdown, the pastor confirms that Quinn and her friends have already been cursed, but he believes that the curse can be broken. He thinks that if Quinn and the others can prove that the demon is a liar, the curse will vanish by surviving longer than the appointed time. That means someone must live beyond the predicted death time, even just for 1 second. After the plan is ready, they start to endure the demon's disturbances until it finally reveals its true form, but it cannot enter the protective circle symbol made by Quinn and her friends. Soon after, they get disturbed by very loud countdown notifications, except Matt, who gets distracted by the appearance of his deceased younger brother, which makes him feel guilty for what he had done to him. Seeing his brother walk away, Matt wants to follow him by unconsciously stepping out of the circle, which makes the demon happy, and finally, Matt gets dragged by the demon. Quinn notices this, so she quickly saves Matt, followed by Jordan, who also wants to help her sister, but he gets restrained by the demon, blocking his movement. When Quinn sees Matt already free, she suddenly gets hit by a speeding car because the driver is drunk. As a result, Matt's countdown ended, and finally, he dies. When Quinn and Jordan hug each other, Quinn realizes that Jordan got a wound in her stomach after being restrained by the demon, so they rush to the hospital, where Quinn asks her friends for help to save Jordan. While being comforted by one of her friends, Quinn sees the doctor treating Jordan's wound, and the doctor tells her that the wound is not too serious. But Quinn still holds a grudge against the doctor, which reminds her that his countdown is still very long, so she plans to do something drastic, starting by going to his office. After overhearing the doctor talking to his wife, Quinn confirms that he really is a cheater, but her purpose is not to protest about his behavior. Instead, she wants to seduce him into coming to a restricted area of the hospital. This, of course, attracts the doctor, so he goes there while enjoying Quinn's temptations from afar. As a result, he became careless, so Quinn got the chance to attack him, planning to stab him with a dangerous syringe that could end his life. But just before Quinn can stab him, Jordan arrives and tells her stop because she could end up in prison. However, she no longer cares because all that matters is that her sister can be safe. Just before Quinn can kill the doctor, the demon drags the doctor away from her, proving that the demon will save anyone whose time is not yet up. So Quinn quickly chased the doctor until she finally caught him, beat him, and once again tried to end his life, but again she got stopped by the demon. As a result, the doctor got the chance to run away from the demon in fear, and finally, he managed to escape. At that moment, Quinn remembered that Jordan's time was about to run out, so she prepared something to prevent it, while Jordan kept being disturbed by the demon, until it threw her toward the window, which shattered. She only has less than 1 minute left, and when she keeps being tormented by the demon, Quinn arrives and calls the demon, and it turns out that she had already prepared a syringe that can end her life through overdose. But just before she can inject it, the demon changes form into Quinn's mother, making her feel longing for her. But Quinn realizes that it is only a trick from a demon, so she starts to use the syringe, which makes the demon panic about her condition. Because of that, the demon tries everything it can to keep Quinn alive, but once she has already lost consciousness, the demon shatters, and finally, it dies, turning into stone that crumbles completely. At first, Jordan thinks that Quinn has already died, but after she sees the instructions left by Quinn to inject a special fluid into her arm, Jordan does it, and finally, Quinn regains consciousness. As a result, she managed to fake her death in front of the demon, and finally, the countdown of both siblings stopped completely. Sometime later, after the incident, Quinn and her family finally visited their mother's grave together, and they learned that the doctor had been arrested by the police after being exposed for sexual harassment when 3 women sued him. Countdown movie ends with the sound of a notification from Quinn's phone, which turns out to be a message that Countdown version 2 had been installed on her phone without being downloaded, and finally, she once again feels threatened about her remaining lifetime. What is that dark figure behind? Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.